All right. What's going on, guys? Growth by Shawn podcast. Josh Powers with me today. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, man?
All right. Josh, let's go over just how we kind of got connected. So we got connected through David. David Waldy's been on the podcast. It escapes me what episode. I mean, I have no idea. If you want to listen to it, go right ahead. But yeah, let's just dive into a little bit of why you kind of joined the group and how we got connected, and then a little bit about like you and what you're doing now, and we'll just go from there.
Sure. Well, David Waldy, I've known David Waldy for years and years, man. It's been a couple decades now, honestly. We connected right after high school. We went to a master's commission together. It was Christian based, very mission oriented. For me, I know that's what I went for. But I was in dark times back then, man, and I met David Waldy. And when I think of like the memories of when he came into my life, like they're almost glowing. Like he was just that important to my experience, and since then, he was a mentor of mine then, and he's been a mentor of mine for the last 3 years as I've been working through some trauma of my own and some of the different things that I'm going through growing as a person. And then on the other side, I mean, it's funny, like I hired David Waldy ultimately to help teach me about empathy and emotional intelligence and just how to maneuver in conversations. And we've been able to partner, and he's been able to help me with a lot of things that I'm building as far as business goes as well. Just some new strategies and things that we're working on. As far as the group, the Ardent Man, I joined up with the Ardent Man. One, because I, again, goes back to David Waldy, man. I just really trust David Waldy. And if he's building something and leading something, then I'm there, man. I'm there for
Mm-hmm.
it. So I just trusted that the group of men that were there were men that I wanted to be connected with and in my tribe, and in the future things that I'm building. So it's been fun just connecting with a group of guys that are like-minded and being able to keep each other accountable. And I think everyone there, I would say, is reaching for something greater. Like
Mm-hmm.
in the conversations we were having in the group today, one of the guys missed something and was considering himself a failure, and like we were able to call him up from
Yeah.
being a failure, because I think really everything that we're doing within the group is just extra credit, like we're just
Yeah.
not letting each other miss the extra credit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. I mean, before we get into all just like the emotional side and a little bit of the group, I just want to hear more about like what you do because I still don't even fully understand it, you
Dude,
know?
I don't even
So,
understand, man.
yeah.
So it's just like a brand new concept. And when I explain this, I assume that everyone understands the construction world, and I find out over and over again that like not everyone gets that world. So the best way I can explain it is it works kind of like a real estate brokerage, if you will. I've put myself in the seat of a real estate agent, where a real estate agent really works with homeowners who have homes that they're trying to sell. They work with people, who are, so you've got the sellers, you've got the buyers, and the real estate agent is this expert that's in the middle that understands the contracts, that understands the marketing, that understands how to connect the dots for those two people to come together and have the best deal that works for everyone. So I've taken a similar concept. My background is in the construction world. I've been swinging a hammer as long as I can remember, man. I was carrying demo buckets for my dad when, he's one of the best tile guys I've ever known. But I guess everyone says that about their father. They're right,
Yep.
Um, but so I've had several construction businesses throughout my life. Over 200 flips under my belt, a lot on the investment side of things. I had a design build firm for a while where we really focused on kitchens, bathrooms, additions, higher end work, working with homeowners rather than investors. So on the homeowner side of things, where I found my fit and what I do best is showing up to the home where the homeowner has a project that they want to accomplish, really being able to understand what they're envisioning, creating a proposal, if you will, an estimate that fits those desires into the estimate, that also works for the general contractors that I've been working with for years. So I understand the market and the prices that are involved there. That expert in the middle, that brings the two together. So ultimately, I work with general contractors as their representative, like their real estate agent if they were selling a house. But in our line of work, I'm generating quality clients and connecting them with clients that they can help. So I generate the leads, go to the sales appointments, hear what the homeowner has to say, bring the two together. At that point, we then take on the design work that's not needed, all the pre-construction documents that are needed for the job to be accomplished the way the homeowner wants to be. We put it in a beautiful little package in a bow and hand it over to our general contractors so they can do what they do best at managing the project, making sure it's getting done. We support them throughout the project with building ongoing change orders and invoices and things like that. And at the end, we get professional photos made of the job sites that we can use for social media and ongoing marketing as we're building the brands for these general contractors.
Yeah.
So,
Like right now I'm reading Think and Grow Rich
yeah,
by Napoleon Hill. And like this is like this concept, this job in a sense that you've created, that's what I think of in terms of like the desire. You didn't know how you were going to get there, but you had the desire to bridge the two together and create something for yourself. And not necessarily that you knew exactly how it was going to go, but you were like, you know what, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I like, and this is what I'm going to do. My question becomes for you though, why like for yourself, when you think of money, how it's important, okay, but why is it not the end all be all to our happiness, even though a large majority of us believe that?
man, that's such a good question. And it's one that I've really been diving into over the last couple years because I would say, man, in my last business, it was the end all for me, and
Mhm.
and that business failed because I had the wrong mindset. It was about the success, the legacy, building something for my kids, like, and ultimately in reading the several books over the last couple years, but one that I'm on right now is the alter ego effect, and it's there's a story in that book. If you've have you read the book?
Mm-mm, no.
So there's a story in the book about a tennis player, okay? And the tennis player would get on the field and or get on the court and just dominate, man. She would dominate her opponents and then she would be beating them so bad that she would almost stop at the end. And they would come back and beat her and come back and beat her again and again and again. And they couldn't figure out what was going on with her mentally and why this was happening. And the guy that wrote The Alter Ego Effect met with her and they were having coffee at a restaurant and he experienced multiple times where she was just this really fair human. She wanted to be fair to everyone. She wanted to make sure that she was paying for her half of the meal. She didn't want to cut in people in line, and he took that and asked her, so what's going through your head at the end of the game when the gas turns off and they come back and they beat you? And what they were able to figure out was she was taking that mindset of fairness to the court. And when she was beating them so bad, she felt bad and wanted them to not be embarrassed. So she would back
Mm,
off and it would cause them to gain the momentum and come back and beat her. So what had to happen was this alter ego that was created to cause a split because her as a human, as a person, what she stands for in being fair with the people around her can't go on the court. It's different on the court. And the guy that wrote the book made it really cool because he said you're really doing the people you're playing against a disfavor when you're not playing at your fullest because you're not allowing them to see who they really are and what's really happening. So
mm,
she had to separate who she was on the court from who she is as a human, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So, for me, it's been that with my business. I think with past businesses, I've over identified myself with that business. Like Josh as a human and
Mhm.
Josh as a business person and as a business was all the same thing inside of my brain. So when I would fail as a business person or I would fail to meet the expectations or the standards, or when it came to fairness for another contractor that I was bidding against, all of that stuff was coming to play for what makes me a human. So it was like handing away the identity of the business and
Hmm.
understanding that it's its own entity, and me showing up on that playing field is completely different than me doing life as a father, as myself when I'm out
Mm.
enjoying my friends. It's just completely different. So I taking that mindset and creating this new entity that's a business that now is it's viewed as a source of income. It's not my identity anymore. It's not who I am. So now what I'm trying to do is create this machine that genuinely helps humanity in the way that I know how, which is connecting the dots for people who have projects that they want to do inside of their home so their family can enjoy it, contractors who are great at doing these projects and can take care of their families by being able to do it. I'm creating a machine around that now that has nothing to do with Josh as a human. And I'm putting the pieces in place to allow it to run and operate in itself. And now money isn't the means to an end anymore. Money is the tool that allows me to become more of who I actually am. So now there's this machine that I've worked hard on with this alter ego of this businessman that I am in that role. And
Mhm.
it's it runs, it takes care of itself. And now I can use that tool to do the things that I want to do, get into nature, enjoy the things that I do as a human, be a part of men's groups and
Mhm.
podcasts, and write the books, and when there's someone in need, be able to help them with the finances to take care of the things that they need to take care of. So ultimately, creating a business and money is just a tool that makes you more of who you actually are,
Mm. Yeah. One of the biggest takeaways there for me that I think is going to be helpful for you to answer now is many of us have these big, big plans, right? And we get overwhelmed by the plan, whether it's creating a business like yourself or it's filling up all of these buckets of podcast, nature, family life. And we have all of these things that we want to do, and we struggle to take that first step. How did you get to the point like where you just finally decided, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that first step. Even if it fails, I'm willing to at least just make the first step and go from there.
So through reading books, we've got people like Byron Katie, Loving What Is. You've got Eckhart Tolle with The Power of Now. And like these people that I consider role models and that I look up to, like they all had these aha moments where their suffering got so strong that something just switched in their brain and all of a sudden they were better. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I spent a lot of my life subconsciously sabotaging things that I was doing because I felt like suffering was necessary to reach the place that I wanted to reach. So I would find myself creating suffering for myself just so my brain would click and turn over to this supernatural thing that all of a sudden makes everything clear and better. And for me, in my story, it wasn't that, there wasn't this magic moment or this time where I can like say, that was it. This is what changed everything. I think ultimately I just suffered enough that I was like, I'm done suffering. And that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that the suffering stopped, but
Hmm.
what's changed is my relationship with the suffering.
Hmm.
You understand? So
Yeah.
it's like I don't view suffering as an enemy anymore. Suffering is a road sign. And I think when we become aware and we
Hmm.
give ourselves the time at the end of the day to really reflect on our day and to like really envision and picture how we showed up in conversations, how we showed up in situations, who we were in those moments, and like spend some time like understanding like why we reacted the way we did, it and why we, sometimes I would come home and I would feel, heavy, and I would feel pain, and I
Hmm.
would try to understand where it was coming from. And I think I just I understood that suffering didn't want to keep me. Like
Mhm.
suffering is a friend, it's a teacher, it's a wise teacher that holds you with an open hand saying, please, like leave. Like, why are you staying here? And it's just pointing out the areas of our life where we need to focus a little bit more. So I think it's just been a couple years of like slowly focusing on those pain points, doing some things trial and error until something works, and then when something works, just doing it consistently. And I still am in that process, I'm still growing. And I can see, man, I can see the fruit of the work over the last
Mhm.
couple years manifesting in my life now. But ultimately it just came down to consistency, consistently making choices that took me more towards peace and contentment, not
Mhm.
necessarily happiness, instead of pain, suffering, and really changing the perspectives and the stories that I was telling myself in my head about myself and the situations that I was in.
Yeah, I mean, I think consistency for the most part is the one thing that people struggle with the most that leads to the self-sabotage and the poor stories that people tell themselves about how they're a failure because they didn't get their entire checklist done today and things of that nature. What is it about, like, what has made it just the catalyst for you in terms of doing the work, doing that consistent work, even when you don't feel like it?
You got to set yourself up for success. You
Mhm.
hear the guys that work out in the morning say, set your gym clothes out the night before. So
Mm.
you wake up, they're there, you're ready to go. Like you're setting yourself up. For me, I use Sundays as my day to set myself up for success. So,
Mhm.
um, I've been using my calendar more than anything to like create this whole holistic approach to my schedule, if you will. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking about, we in the group we call it our sectors, the seven
Mhm.
sectors of life. I'm thinking about the things that you would say we're filling our buckets. We
Mm.
have this goal to make sure we're filling all these buckets. I think about what those buckets are, and I make sure that I'm like scheduling time for each of those buckets in my calendar each week. And what I've learned, and this is what consistency teaches you, Sean, it's not, this isn't something that just happens overnight. But what I
Mhm.
learned is after months of following this calendar, the weeks that I didn't follow it, I felt lost, confused, battling with shame.
Mhm.
My energy, like it was like all the gears just weren't clicking correctly.
Mm.
But when I spend Sunday knowing who I am and just stepping into like what I want my life to look like, and I create a plan on paper that's my calendar, I don't have to think about it anymore. Like I know for a fact that I'm lying to myself in the morning if I'm not showing up and doing those things that are on my calendar.
Mm.
Any excuse to not do what's on that calendar is just a lie.
Yeah.
And it's just accepting that as truth, and giving yourself grace when things happen, life happens,
Mhm.
but you have to set yourself up for success, man. Like that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. So so what has the group done for you thus far?
The men's group,
Yeah.
it's helped me connect with men. Like
Mhm.
my father left when I was young. I feel like I've had a difficult time connecting with men and creating,
Mhm.
deeper relationships with men in my life.
Mhm.
Um, and this group has made it really easy to do that, man. It's been cool to build trust with guys, to be able to be a little more vulnerable and transparent about some of the things, and to see them trusting me with the same things in their life. Like there's something about that vulnerability, that imperfection in each other that like just
Mm.
draws me closer and pulls me in. And I can say, man, like the further we've spent time in this group, the more we spent time in this group and the deeper the relationships have gained, I I step out into the world knowing I've got a group of brothers that's got my back no matter what happens.
Mm.
Like that feels pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think it's so hard for us as a society now to have us, like us as men, find not just groups like this, but people to connect with? Like the statistic that I always go back to is that like men over 35 have on average less than one friend. You
Yeah.
know, where are we going wrong? What happened? And not asking you just like, hey, why did this happen? Not that you 100% can give me that answer, but from at least your perspective, what is through your experience, why has it been so difficult for that to
Mm.
transpire?
Okay. I think there's a lot of reasons. A couple come to mind. One, another book. Like, dude, for me, books have been it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like in this world of like looking for mentors, like a
Mm-hmm.
book is an author's heart. It's like you
Mm,
have that author as your mentor through that book, and it's
mm,
just so precious to me. And it's like another book, No More Mr. Nice Guy was
mm-hmm,
one thing to help me with this. So I think we live in a culture where a lot of men were raised by their moms, and
mm-hmm,
men are taught how to be men by women. And
mm,
women do their best, to
mm-hmm,
to raise their sons, but there's something that a mom can't teach their son that a dad can. So when we're raised by our moms, I feel like it's we're looking for love by filling her tanks. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
So we go through life filling like there's just these contracts we have subconsciously with each other when we're in that role where I do something for you, you do something for me. And when that's not happening, it starts creating resentment.
mm-hmm,
And you can't really create depth when you're trying to do a relationship off of a currency like that.
mm-hmm,
So I would say that's number one, because resentment is built by not being open about what our desires are and what we're looking for and who we are and when we're going through things. And like I remember when I was being raised, if I would come home with a bad grade or fail at sports or whatever, like I felt some dissonance starting to happen in my
mm-hmm,
family, like I was a failure and like the love started going away a little bit.
mm-hmm,
So I think it's just we have to come back to understanding that like our love and our happiness and peace comes from within, and we have
mm-hmm,
everything we need inside of us. And when we
mm-hmm,
spend the time with ourselves, I was talking with a friend about this the other day. We were talking about the importance of like recharging in solitude,
mm-hmm,
and I think in the past I would recharge with groups of friends because we were pulling energy from each other to refill each other's tanks. But
mm-hmm,
when you recharge in solitude, you can go into the world without expecting anything in return because like you're filling your own tanks. So I think when we're able to be self-aware and take responsibility for charging your own tanks, we can go into the world and build deeper relationships and connect with people without expecting something in return. And now on the other side of the coin, I think it's difficult to show, especially men to men, where your weaknesses are when you're
mm-hmm,
living life that way, because you have to be good and positive in order to get the good and positive back. When you show
mm-hmm,
weakness, when you show where you're failing and you're not giving the energy to someone anymore, the relationships start fading away when you're living that way. So
mm-hmm,
I also feel like why depth of relationships don't happen and why it's hard to make those genuine connections is because most people are just afraid to truly just be vulnerable and be themselves and like be honest about when they're going through things and not in the group we say don't suffer, what is it, don't suffer in dark or don't
in
suffer
silence.
in silence, yeah.
Yeah.
So we suffer in silence, and we're afraid to take who we really are out into the world and to build those relationships.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, one thing that I mean, the first thing that popped up for me was like when I think of my upbringing and everything, and this is crazy because this is part of our reflection for the week too, of when we've thought about different times where we may have seeked approval or uh done something in order to be loved, just like you were talking about with grades and things like that. Um, for myself, like when I think about like my parents and how they raised me and just like a good amount of people say that they did the best they could with what they had. And my parents are awesome, super blessed in that aspect. Um, but I definitely felt my mom was much closer to me and raised me much more than my dad. And so as a society, I think that that's for sure, like a lot of people will be able to resonate with that from each of our stories. Um, so when I like look at that, like I don't know, I'm just able to reflect a lot in terms of wow, when are the other times that I was like seeking approval or seeking love, and trying to do something, to get something back for
For
love and
sure.
things of that nature. Um, but yeah, like with the group, like suffering in silence, there's so many people, so many men specifically, that are suffering in silence. And I think we've got a great group, except for Roger.
Yep.
Um, you know,
We love you, Roger. We
yep,
love you, man.
because we know Roger is going to listen to this, and Roger is yummy. So, that's our new favorite word of the group, and I don't know why everyone is making fun of me for this when I call Roger yummy, but it's
I
just
mean, Roger is yummy,
yeah,
man. I mean,
Roger
that's
is
the best
yummy,
adjective for the man, you
you
know?
know? Yeah. So why do you think that there's like when we talk about the vulnerability, right? And opening up and not suffering in silence, I feel that too many men are though, you know? And so how can we invite them more into groups like ours or be there for people that have that resistance to being open and vulnerable? It's not okay for men to cry and be human and all these things.
So ultimately, integrity and trust it starts with yourself, you know? And I think most men suffer in silence because they don't trust the men that are in their lives, but they don't trust the men that are in their lives because they don't trust themselves. And I'll
Mhm,
explain this the best way I know how. So when we're seeking love the way that you were talking about, we're doing so let's say, culture, my mom, someone that I'm dating, a friend, they all have these views and these perspectives of like what's acceptable. And I take that as my measuring stick of how I'm showing up in that particular relationship. And in doing that, I'm betraying who I am to be what I need to be for them.
mhm,
So I show up at home wore out with this true me that's inside of me. Like, what the hell, man? Like, I don't trust you because you don't show up for me. You're showing up for everyone else, but at the end of the day, you're betraying me. And
mhm,
and that it's just this voice inside of us that just wants to like be known and express itself. That's our authentic us.
mhm,
And I think, like even when it comes to integrity, like when I tell someone like this podcast, I had a
mhm,
million reasons today why I shouldn't be here right now,
mhm,
but I told you I would be here and I told you
mhm,
that we were doing this podcast. And it's not even for you, it's for me. Like at
mhm,
the end of the day, I'm going to bed knowing that I did what I said I was going to do. Like
mhm,
integrity starts with me. So it's the same thing with trust. Like until I can go into the world and trust myself to show up the way that I need to show up for me, then I can't trust the men around me to show up for me because
mhm,
in my mind, I'm creating a perspective, a realm where because I'm treating myself that way, I'm viewing everything else around me that way.
mhm,
So until I can truly stand there for myself and trust myself, then I will view the world with that skewed lack of trust.
mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And like they're concepts that I've heard and learned before as well, especially from David when he talks about trust within yourself and personal integrity. And just like if I told you I was going to be at your house at 6 a.m. tomorrow and didn't go, and then would you look at me differently? How would you trust me from there? And then if I told you the next day, and then the same thing happened, and then at some point you're gonna say, "Don't bother coming," and that's what we do to ourselves, where we say that we're gonna do one thing, we don't do it, and it's this mistrust, 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 over and over and over until
Yeah.
that line of personal integrity is just diminished and you feel like it's vanished and you can't get it back. And you're not sure why everything is going wrong. You were going to say
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, I would say, and pay attention to the subtle energies, okay? Because there's the subtle energy of I need to show up to Shawn's podcast
Hmm.
because Shawn is going to think less of me if I don't.
Hmm.
Me doing that is betraying myself. because
Mm,
I'm doing it for you.
yeah.
Me saying I'm showing up to Shawn's podcast because I told myself that I was going to do that and I'm going to be a man of integrity. I'm
Hmm.
not showing up for you anymore. I'm not betraying myself. Now I'm showing up because it's the man that I am, and I'm going to hold integrity to myself for what I said that I was going to do.
Hmm.
Can you feel the subtle energy difference between those two scenarios?
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that comes up for me, though, right there is there's this notion, and parts of me believe that it's very true, and parts of me do not, where we need to heal in order to grow. So let me further explain.
Okay.
Where just like with the personal integrity and the trust within themselves, it's a relationship within yourself that's broken. And you need to heal that relationship. I agree with that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like if you, I feel like I answered my own question there because like it's a poor example where there's people that I talk to, okay, and they said, and like what happens is, you know what, I'll be able to do this, but I need to get through this first. All right. Like for me, like, parts of my situation, and like I could say, this is holding me back. So once I heal and get over this, then I can do XYZ.
Mm.
Why is it so difficult for us while we're in the process of growing, healing, evolving to go and do things? We feel like we need to be able to get through things first.
Okay. So again, this goes back to like the alter ego book.
Hmm.
You know, I'm a salesman going to a sales appointment, and I have this story inside of my head that salesmen are sleazy,
Hmm.
and I'm telling myself that this, and I'm trying my best to work through this idea that salesmen are sleazy to go show up as a salesman to someone to sell something that I believe in.
Mm,
So like I'm showing up on the playing field that's mine with a story inside of my head that's got a twisted perspective. So I
mm,
think like in the men's group, we did this letter to ourselves where we're
mm,
a year out and we're writing a letter to ourselves in this present moment.
hmm.
So it creates that. What I loved about that letter, by the way, is it like creates dissonance
Yep.
because I feel like it's easy for me to look to my past and to
Hmm.
be proud of where I am now because of what I've accomplished. But it's difficult for me to be proud of the man that I'm becoming, or
Hmm.
even proud of the man that I actually am right here, right now, because I'm always becoming. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's like
Hmm.
there's always more, and I'll be proud of myself now when I get there. But like right now, there's this shame that drives me to become
Hmm.
better. So creating that dissonance where I was able to break off of me to the future and look back to where I am now and like praise me for having the courage and the bravery and the consistency to be able to enjoy the fruit of my labor then.
Hmm.
I broke down into tears, man, for me right here, right now. Like,
Hmm.
holy shit, dude, I'm proud of me. Like, this is great. So I think it's just that. Like when we show up to a situation saying that we need to heal ourselves, we need to be healed before we can do this, we're
Hmm.
constantly telling us ourselves the story of who we are and what we're trying
Hmm.
to become. When we can view ourselves as what we're becoming and the story inside of our head, our perspective changes from
Hmm.
this victim, I'm not there yet, to I am doing the work right now. I know I'm not there yet, but I am becoming. And now the story is I am this man. I've been an
Hmm.
imposter not being this man. I am this man. And we can
Hmm.
show up telling ourselves a new story. And when we can
Hmm.
do that, now we're not fighting against this false narrative that's in our head. And we can show
Hmm.
up just authentically being who we are, making the mistakes we need to make as we're growing towards that, but we're showing up from abundance and not from scarcity at
Hmm.
that point.
Yeah. Let me ask you this to make it a little bit more binary now, though.
Okay.
Do we need to heal in order to grow?
No.
Okay.
Dude, honestly, I think spirituality and
Yeah.
growth and everything is so backwards than what our culture teaches us.
Okay.
I, you know, there was something on Instagram the other day that it was like when the man who blames everyone else has a long way to go.
Hmm.
The man that blames himself is getting close. The man that blames no one has arrived, you know? And
Mm.
I think it's not healing to grow. It's this constant awareness of I'm perfectly okay right now as I am. And when
Mm.
we can accept that and surrender to that, everything else flows. There was a moment, I used to be a painter, okay?
Hmm.
I was painting, and we call it cut brushing, when you take the paintbrush and you're painting like where the wall meets the ceiling and you're trying to
Hmm.
get this nice crisp straight line. And like, I would have my headphones in, listen to my audiobook or whatever, painting my lines. And I would look back at where I was painting or look at where I was going. And then when I would step back, the line was always wavy. You know what I mean? But what I noticed is when I looked at the brush the entire time and then stepped back and look at the line, it was crisp, clean, exactly
Mm.
what I was going for. And there was this moment, this aha moment, this revelation that I received that was like, this is life. It was almost like God spoke to me audibly, it's
Hmm.
like, this is life. You're so focused on your past and where you're going that your life is like this. It's a roller coaster ride. But when you just show up and you're authentically yourself without the stories, without all of this stuff of I need to do this and I need to do that. We don't need to do shit. We just
Hmm.
need to show up. That's it. Show up, do what we say we're going to do for ourselves in integrity in that moment. And all of that just works itself out, you know?
Yeah. I think that's one of like the best things that's been said on the podcast for sure. Right there. Because like I get stuck in that trap of looking at everything in the past and all of the fear of the future, and I get stuck not being in that moment. So of course there's that awareness that you bring to each moment, right? To help you sit with that moment, all right, and be present. What other are there techniques or like grounding type exercises, or other than just like the awareness, are there other things that you're doing on a daily basis? I'm thinking like actionable steps that people can take in order to help them bring that awareness to like now, this moment, listening to this podcast, having it hit home for themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost is the easiest, like a consistent meditation practice.
Hmm.
It quiets what the Buddhists call the monkey mind.
Hmm.
Like you're able to understand that the mind and the voice that's inside of your head isn't who you are. It's just a tool. It's there to bring awareness. It's there to be experienced by awareness.
Hmm.
So practical things that I do, and dude, I'm still working on this. Like I call it sleeping. When you're not in now, you're sleeping. When you're not present, you're literally somewhere else. You're creating
Hmm.
a world inside of your hell in your head that isn't actually here.
Hmm.
So I'll go days sometimes and be like, whoa, wait a minute, I've been asleep for days, and like I'm back present again.
Yep.
I think the consistent meditation has helped me to like become more present and aware, but being intentional with the calendar is so important for this because what
Hmm.
I've noticed throughout the day is at the end of my day, I give myself this time for reflection that I was talking about.
Hmm.
And like what I was noticing was like this voice in my head wanted to create stories and bring up the I should have done this and I should and all this stuff like there in the moment
Hmm.
constantly. And it's like I quit viewing that voice as the enemy, as this
Hmm.
thing that was trying to hurt me. I started viewing myself as as the masculine energy in that voice's life that can hold space for what it needs to say. But when I'm in the moment and I'm present and I'm here with you, I'm like, voice, like I love you, I hear
Hmm.
you, but I promise you tonight at 9 o'clock, you can tell me everything you need to tell me. But right
Mm.
now it's not the time, okay? And I just like I promise it, I let it know that it's going to get its time to let me know what it thinks and what it needs to say and all the
Hmm.
the future and all the stuff that he wants to talk about, but I'm able to set it to the side and allow it to just continue experiencing the day with me and then
Hmm.
give it my full attention just like I gave everyone else that I was with during that day. I give it my full attention during that reflection time. And in doing that consistently, that voice has started to trust me more over time. It knows that
Mm,
when I say I'm going to give it its time, it's going to get its time. So it doesn't feel like it needs to break into every situation
mm,
so much. It just wants to be heard, man. You
yeah,
know? And when you make time to let it be heard, it'll respect your time frame for giving it its space.
yeah. That's such good stuff too. And so the way that my mind like went from here though, when you talked about the masculine, like super masculine frame that you have, driven, get shit done, attitude, mentality, and action. When is it and how do you embody the more feminine traits that you have, the creative side of yourself?
Yep. Dude, I'm carrying feminine energy with me all day.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, the way that I treat my daughters, the way
Mm-hmm.
that I treat my mom, the way that I treat someone that I'm in a relationship with is a complete reflection of how I treat that feminine energy that's inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, man, there was a point about 2 years ago where I felt like the feminine energy inside of me wanted a divorce. It didn't trust the masculine energy inside of me anymore because I wasn't giving it space. It
Mm-hmm.
was a burden, with the things that it wanted to do. It just didn't, like, I didn't have time for it. Like, there
Mm-hmm.
was this constant battle in my head. And I think it's in creating that space for that feminine energy. So on my calendar now, I have time to create. I have time to put on music and dance. Dude,
Mm.
I don't care, man. I will get in a freaking Epsom salt bath with candles and listen to an audiobook, like I will do it for my feminine
Yep.
energy, knowing that there is that energy inside of me that I'm going to hold space for. And it rewards me for it, dude, because it doesn't feel like this nagging or this pulling anymore. It's like, I trust you. Like when you're out working, when you're
Mm-hmm.
out providing, when you're out doing your thing, I got your back. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know that when I need you, you're going to show up and you're going to hold space for me. Perfect example today on our men's group meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were talking about how sometimes we just have these emotions that come up where,
Mm-hmm.
like 2 mornings ago I was in the shower and out of nowhere I just started crying, just
Mm-hmm.
started bawling, man. And like my masculine energy wants to like understand why, what's the story, how can I fix it, what's the
Mm-hmm.
solution, what's going on, and I would say that to me that isn't even like real alpha male masculine energy. That's falling into that like nice guy scarcity, like toxic masculinity of
Mm-hmm.
I need to solve. And in the book, the alter ego effect, it was talking about when that voice comes in, you give it a face of an enemy and you
Mm-hmm.
fight it off. And for me, I wasn't a huge fan of that. I mean, I get there are voices where you don't want to go to the gym and you can give that voice an enemy face all day.
Mm-hmm.
But when deep emotions start coming up, I allowed the toxic masculinity to do its thing for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
but me as the true awareness as I was witnessing all of this pulled back that alpha male energy again, and that voice that and I didn't even have a voice. It was just an emotion, a deep emotion that just wanted to cry and express itself. I just pulled back and I held space for it. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't try to create a story. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't try to figure out where it was coming from. I didn't try to figure out a solution. I just let it out. And I stood there in my masculine energy and just held it and just let it
Mm-hmm.
go, man. And like it was 15 minutes of bawling, dude.
Yep.
And then I walked away from this experience with that feminine energy inside of me, trusting me as the alpha that's leading our lives even more. Because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell her that she was wrong. I didn't say, well, what the hell is this coming from? I
Mm-hmm.
didn't say, okay, what's the solutions? Let's fix this. I was like, express your darkness, baby. I'm here for it. And just let
Mm-hmm.
it out. And then when it was over, it alchemized into euphoria almost. And then it was like, okay, I trust you. I trust you. I
Mm-hmm.
trust you. And then it was on with my day, man. And in the past, I would have buried it right then when I felt
Mm-hmm.
it like this is wrong. Why am I doing this? Like I shouldn't be feeling like this. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no reason to be sad right now. And I would be battling it all day. It would have affected my whole day. But I just held space for it in that moment, changed everything, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I feel we've just been taught in a sense of, you know, to judge our thoughts and judge our emotions so much, and that it's okay to do X, but it's not okay to do Y, and all of these such binary, this is what a man does, this is what a woman does, and it's not always so binary. So when I view you as a dad and like a leader, provider, and all of these great characteristics, so many of us think, you know what, I can have that amazing woman or I can have that amazing family when I make X amount of money. Or when I'm able to, just provider and leader characteristics. And those are the only two that they think is what makes like a big happy family. So
Mhm.
what else do you need besides just bringing home a paycheck? What do you need to be able to provide in order to have a great relationship with your kids, and like that whole realm and aspect?
This is going to go much further than most people want to take it, but this is me personally, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening inside of me. I'm already married to me. Both there is masculine and feminine inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I make that real and I honor it and I love it and I respect it, and I'm showing up every day, refilling my tanks through the relationship that's inside of myself, I'm showing up in the world not needing that anymore. So it's not like, what can I do to get a relationship? I've got these goals so I can meet these certain people to qualify for this. It's like my life is starting to feel full. It
Mm-hmm.
feels whole. I'm satisfied, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And now the people that are starting to show up into my life, they're just adding to what's already full. I don't need anything from them. I'm not pulling anything from them. I'm not passing my energy to them for them to devour either. Like those people,
Mm-hmm.
you can feel it. It's toxic. And
Mm-hmm.
those people don't hang around my life very often anymore, you know?
Mm,
So you have to become whole in the relationship that's inside of you to truly be able to be there for the people that are in your life. And that's for everything. That's your business, that's your, your finances, that's your family. I mean, that's anything. That's showing up creatively, like that's being the true expression of who you are, is understanding that everything you need is inside of you. And I know that sounds so cliche. Everyone
mhm,
says everything, but it's actually really true. And when
mm,
your heart coheres with your brain and like you finally have coherence around that actually is true, and you take responsibility that I'm the only one responsible for my needs, I'm the
mhm,
only one responsible for my happiness, my desires, no one else, and nor will they ever be. Until you truly walk that out, you cannot have a healthy relationship with anyone, period.
mm. Yeah, that's that's good stuff right there. Josh, I want to just hear a little bit about, because we just touched on so many different topics and aspects.
Yeah.
Just where we can find you first before we close up shop, get to the last question here.
Dude, right now it's difficult.
Yep.
I've got an Instagram. I can share that with you so you can link it to the podcast. It's
Hmm.
something that I want to start working on, but
Hmm.
I've distanced myself from social media over the last couple years as I've been going through this journey.
Hmm.
And now that I'm getting to the other side of it and I want to help men and entrepreneurs and people who are going through similar things as I have in my past, I'm going to start expanding some of that. But honestly, Shawn, right now, man, I would tell them just to get in touch with you, and I would be more than happy to have a conversation with anyone who feels like they could grow or be helped with what I have to offer. So,
Sure, that's cool. Um, our last question comes from our previous guest. All right.
mhm.
So this is from Nicole Dewis. If you could travel anywhere in the world for one day, where would you go and what would you do?
Anywhere in the world. So a while back, one of my favorite books was the 5 a.m. Club. And
Hmm.
I love the author of that book because he's a connoisseur of wonderful things. Like you could just tell, like everything that he does is like he wants to do it to the best.
Hmm.
And the book took place on this little island called Mauritius off the coast of South Africa. It's like um just this beautiful island. The culture is this melting pot of a lot of different religions and a lot of different cultures, and they truly live on like island time, where it's just relaxed. be yourself, man, that's where I want to go, man. Like for some reason, that place has just always stuck out to me, and I want to experience it, man.
Hey, you
And
know
what was
what?
the other
It's
part of the question?
what would you do?
Not as much of nothing as I possibly could. I would just be present, man.
Yep, that's it. That's all there is, you know? But yeah, man, there were so many good just like tidbits, golden nuggets, just how to be present, like
Thank you. Yep.
everything, like people are gonna want to hear this one, you know? Sometimes people get lost in this like I want to listen to the episode where you interview the guy with like 80,000 followers or something like this. And like sometimes those aren't all what it's chalked up to be, you know? And you get someone like you where it's like, I have 200 followers on Instagram, you know, and like making more money than people that have 40,000 followers do, like it's just such an arbitrary number, and it's just like social media, and it's not the end all be all to everything,
Yeah.
and so many people get lost in it. There's a lot of people that get lost in that mess, and just like we've chatted about today, just lost in the future, lost in the past, and they get themselves stuck and in fear, and they're not sure even who they are or what type of relationship with they have with themselves. So
Yeah.
I think this is a really good one for people. So thank you, Josh.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, dude. I really enjoyed this.
I got you.